Hello there, and welcome everybody to another session of a roundtable with Ron and Ben. I am Ron, and over to my, I guess it would be over to my, that way, I guess it's to my left, is Ben. How are you, Ben? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Ron. How are you
All right,
doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Just make sure that we've got the chat up and running,
It
seeing
is.
if we've got audio from people. Just want to make sure I got Jimmy that says he's in. Philo is in. Audio's okay. Can you hear both Ben and myself? Hi, Seth. Good morning. Or good afternoon, actually.
Yep. I think they can hear us both, which is good. No
Wow,
audio problems.
that is a first. That is pretty amazing. Um, okay, let me see if I can do this because I've been trying to. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I don't know why it's doing that. Um, we do need to get this guy up. So we got disclosures going on. Trading futures is risky. Please make sure you know what you're doing before you do it. And all the information in this video is for educational purposes only. All right, so I think that wraps that up. So the topic for today is the mentor. What is he? Um, how does he benefit you? What benefits does he provide to you? And why would you want a mentor?
So I think so for mentors, like we've all had mentors, right? And everything that we've ever done. I know that so my background before trading was construction. And I had some really good mentors who taught me, a lot. And without those, not really a boss, but like as those mentors, people take you under their wing, or teach you all the tips and the tricks and the shortcuts on how to do good at what you're trying to do. And through different things that I've done in my life, there's always been like a mentor, kind of having someone there that we can, or that I could count on and draw from their experience, their knowledge, their their insight. And so Ron and I have put together something that we think is pretty awesome, in our opinion. Like we've been working on it for like quite a while, and many like hours. I'm just glad that I have unlimited minutes on my phone, because Ron and I have spent a long time and a lot of minutes working on this uh, program that we put together. And so we're gonna go through. We're gonna ask some questions, and keep the questions coming through the comments. So we're gonna ask some questions, and you guys just answer them as you go along, and we're gonna kind of tell you on what we think, how we've addressed some of these questions and concerns. One of the first questions here is, who here has found trading to be maybe just a little bit more difficult than you originally thought? Because I know when I first started, I did not realize how difficult trading was. Like I knew it was, you walk into it like, I know this is gonna be challenging, right? But as you really get into it, it's like, okay, this is this is way more this is way more challenging and overwhelming than I originally thought, right? Because it's it's hard to prepare yourself for how difficult this whole journey is.
Well, let's add to that for a second, Ben. How about this question? How many of you guys got into trading and thought, oh man, this is easy. This is a piece of cake. I can do this. No problem. How about that? Just very, very quickly find out that you just hit a brick wall and it's like, maybe
Yeah.
not.
I I know that I've told this on the stream, but when I first started trading sniper, like I've only traded with Apex. So that was, I mean, been a really good thing, right? So I didn't come in with a lot of background with trading, so I didn't have to unlearn a lot of stuff, but I did have to unlearn a lot of bad habits that I developed while trading and breaking rules. Um, but trading the Apex, I've told the story that like for the first 20 days I traded sniper, I didn't lose a trade. And I was like, this is so easy. All you do is just take these setups and they just always win. And then at those 20 days, then I started losing and and I was breaking rules before the 20 days, so I just had gotten lucky those, 20 days. And then it was a long time of struggling because I developed all these bad habits. And then it was a long time of struggling and, figuring things out on my own, right? And like I was in the mentor group, like there was the mentor one used to only have like 4 people in it. It was David who's here. There was 2 other guys and Lori. Like there was just 4 people in the mentor group. And Lori has heard all the silly questions that I've ever asked, and she's gracious. She's been gracious enough for years to entertain all my silly questions that I've had.
Can I
Um,
ask a real quick question, Ben, before we get going, just to kind of make sure that we kind of get a pulse? Who in here right now is not an Apex member and is not familiar with Apex and the Apex trading strategy? Is there anybody in the room? In the room, in this podcast? No one. All right. Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
well, that's good. So that means we got all Apex. And so Lori, she's been my mentor for since I started, and it's been uh, a number of years, and I'm really grateful that she's been there with me for this journey. Um, so having her as a mentor has been like invaluable, right? Um, so having a mentor is for me, and everyone's different, right? But I know for me, having a mentor has been really crucial. And then when Ron and I met, just happenstance, we kind of clicked on a whole bunch of different levels, and it was like, you're doing this, I'm doing this, you're doing this, oh, this is what I do. This, like today in that the simplicity trade that he called in the room that that he that he took, right? So I took the same trade, and we're talking. We're like, here's our target, and then like midway through the trade, I think Ron asked me, he goes, "Hey, where's your stop?" And I threw out the number, the price level where my stop was, and he was like, "Oh, that's exactly where my stop is." And so like it was just awesome to have that confirmation, right? So Ron and I are talking. We're in it, we're talking about simplicity. We see a trade. We've identified the target, and then and we're just on the same wavelength to some degree, and having bouncing that off him like, oh, your stop is right there, my stop is right there, and it's just like that is it's invaluable. Just knowing that like he's seeing what I'm seeing, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. It's really great.
And this is also something, Ben, that I attribute to as well. That so people just understand. You and I have been literally like side by side um, every day. trading since August of last year.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
So it's kind of like, and again, Ben and I kind of hate to use this terminology, the whole mentoring thing, but yeah, I can call Ben my mentor, my coach, um, my accountability partner, my fill in the blank, and that's really really important. And at the end of the day, even some of the best traders in the world, or some of the best professionals, and regardless, pick a profession, stick anything in any word that you want. You need a mentor, somebody that will kind of guide you and um, take you to the next level. And usually that person is somebody that is more experienced than you are, more seasoned, has just somebody that has to be on a higher level than you to pull you up and then you know get you growing. I mean, even Lori, believe it or not, um, has, even though it's not kind of like an official thing, but I'm sure she's got a mentor as well, and that would be Daryl, because if she needs something, she'll bounce things off, and I'm sure Daryl does as well, whether it's John or what have you. So they constantly like push each other. I mean, it's just, I think you kind of get the idea of what it is that I'm trying to say. So um, Ben was kind of talking about a little bit about his background, and with me, I'm in construction as well. I've had my own construction company for almost 20 years now, and I've been in construction and real estate for the last almost 25, 30 years. And when I first got into real estate, I had a coach and a mentor as well, who basically took me to where I needed to go. And in very short order, I was basically stepping up into a place where I was teaching and coaching and mentoring other people to become real estate agents. So it's kind of like, it's this progression thing where it's as long as the wheels constantly keep turning, and if it doesn't stop, then you'll always continue to improve and better your skill and your craft, or whatever that is. So the reason, why was I saying that? I was leading somewhere with that, Ben, and we've got so many things we need to cover in such a short period of time. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come back to me, so I'll let you go on. Sorry.
That's all right. That was fun.
Stuff.
Ron and I were talking yesterday, and in like mid thought, I was talking, and I go, I absolutely just forgot what I was saying. Like I didn't. It was odd. And he's like, well, that happens. That happens to me. He's like, when you get a lot, when you get older, you'll experience that. I was like, oh, okay, that's.
So I
I
just
I
had that
found it.
newest moment.
I figured out what I was talking about, but I was like, it was an odd thing. So go, going back. So okay. So the next question is right with it. So with the Apex system, there are a lot of there's a lot of different setups, right? So who here has been overwhelmed trying to decide which setups to take? Now, I know Ron and I we've done a number of one-on-one uh, sessions, and and Ron's worked with people and I've worked with people, and a lot of the times we talk to people and they're taking setups. You say, well, why are you taking this setup? And so like trying to decide on which setup to take and the reason why is sometimes a very difficult question because like, and I've said it before, the trader sitting here in this chair is different than the guy watching my shoulder, like myself. If I was standing up just away from the computer, it's like, well, why did you take that setup? What was your thought process? And then the guy sitting trading can kind of have a different answer than if I'm step back and away from the whole situation. And so looking at the setups, I've been able to, and this is through trial and error, back testing, live, and you know having live trades too, right? So like I've done a lot of the back testing. That's one of my areas of expertise, right? Is testing hundreds of these setups and getting win rates and everything, and then knowing that I can take that data and use it in my live trading. Um, but I don't take every setup, right? There's a number of setups people post in the ER and everything, and it's just like, well, I don't trade that setup. Like I know why I would not take that setup, or why not to take that area, take a trade in that area. But like I specialize in just a handful of setups, and it's really helped me where I'm not looking for every setup, right? Like if I see pick a trade like JFT or an SLZ or any of those trades. Like I don't specialize in those. They all work. They're all good. They're all good trades, but I don't specialize in them. So when they happen, I'm not focusing on them, right? I'm focusing on my setups, which helps clear my headspace, because I here's my let me count the setup. So I do simplicities, LREs, Lorax, and then I don't really trade the interbar scalp because it's a really technical trade. Ron is the IBS, like, well, Lori is the IBS guru, right? But Ron knows the IBS. So I trade those setups, and that's it. Like that's my trade plan. Those are the setups that I look for. And that's all about, developing a trade plan. And then another thing with the Apex system is you have a negative risk a negative risk to reward, right? And I know that for me, that was a struggle, right? Like we're risking 21 ticks to gain 9 ticks, right? Or depending on the market, different ATM. But it's skewed to the risk side instead of the reward side. And so that was a struggle with me. And so how do I negate some of that? How do I negate some of that risk? And one way we do that is, through uh, identifying good targets on trades, having a trailing an ATM. But one of the big things with the Apex system is how do you filter those trades down that fit your trade plan, how much risk you're willing to take, your profit target that you want to hit for the day, your stop loss when you're gonna stop. Um, So that's a question on the Apex system, right? Is how many of you have been overwhelmed on how many setups? And I know that through the years working with Lori and just doing a lot of testing myself, I've been able to narrow that down. And when Ron and I have worked with people one on one, or I've worked with people one on one, like that is like a common struggle that we find that people have is, yeah, I'm trading sniper. And it's like, well, what about sniper are you trading? Are you trading like every sniper setup? Like, and so we got to kind of work backwards and say, you shouldn't be taking every setup, right? You should really focus on these certain setups. And then once people do that, they're able to, just really slow down. It really slows down and gives you more time to focus on the trade, because you're like, well, I'm not doing that trade. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for this off that level. Oh, the trade setup happened. Okay, I can take the trade. And like today, with going back to today, because today was a perfect example. The market was really just not doing anything, just doing a lot of chop. And we sat there. We got that trade. It was what, like over halfway through the session run
What's up today?
for the simplicity trade.
Yeah, it was. No, actually, it was 2/3 of the way.
2/3 of the way.
The trade was taken at, well, actually, yeah, halfway. 11:03 is when we got in, and we were in it for 22 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, and that's part of the psychology aspect of it too. That working with a good mentor, will help you is deal with that. And it's not a 1 day thing or a one time thing or a 5 minute conversation. I mean, this is something that I know Ben and I have been working on. I mean, literally, we psychologically speaking, we have both have come a very, very long way in some things that we were both missing, and hadn't the one wasn't there for the other, I don't think that, at least I know for myself, I'd be able to pull myself out of X, whatever that is, if Ben wasn't there to just kind of like crack the whip and say, "Wait a minute, buddy, pull this thing back because remember what your rules say." And the same goes back to him in a different aspect of it when he was going through something, and we've touched about this before, and he'd ask me questions. Says, "Well, Ron, we've done this, this, and this for the last couple of days, and this has happened. What do we do?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do we do? It's we come back tomorrow, trade like nothing happened." And you know, I didn't see him at the time because this was on the phone, but I can just imagine that the look in his face was like, "Really? What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, that's exactly what I
That's that's the expression,
mean." That was my imitation of Ben.
yeah.
So, which, by the way, I mean, we talk about like the things, and this is a complete side note. I've been meaning to say something, but it's like you talk about how the fluke about how Ben and I met, and some of the similarities that we have between one another, and we just found out recently that we're both left-handed, and I just found out recently that these are my glasses that I wear on a daily basis. They're Oakley's, and they're my prescription glasses. And I noticed in one of the videos that I was watching, Ben, turn your head over to the side for a second.
I don't what? I'm gonna oh my gosh. They are Oakleys. That's pretty funny.
Anyway, okay, that's it. I'm done. So,
Uh, on that
so
that's
basically, what I'm
fun.
saying is to find a good mentor means you wear a really good pair of glasses. So, uh, where was I going with all this? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so the accountability part and the psychological aspect of it, it's really really important when you have somebody that, like Ben said, is behind your shoulders. It's not as easy. I mean, it's a lot easier for me now to hold myself accountable for things because that happens through time and realizing that if I don't do this, then I'm not going to get the things that I want to get done. And a mentor is going to help you do that until you are actually able to put yourself on track, stay on track, and not derail yourself. And that's literally what a good mentor can do.
I know Ron has a lot of strengths and a few weaknesses, right? And I have a few strengths and a lot of weaknesses, and so we play off really well with each other,
Wait a minute, that's a
right?
very, very skewed risk reward you just threw out there. No, it's about the same, guys. It's hopefully our strengths can um, overpower our weaknesses, but sometimes our biggest weakness can become our biggest strength if you use it to your advantage. Like Lori, for example, one of her weaknesses is she's got really bad internet, and she's turned that into one of her greatest strengths because that's how she trades, and she only finds the best of the best trades that are going to fit into her limited time span that she has that her internet is up because she's always under the assumption that her internet can go down at any given time. So,
Yeah, that's an excellent point. When I remember one time she was talking about internet and she was like, I'm, cutting some trees down so I have some better internet. And I'm like, what? is
need to
that
see the sky.
is that a
Need to
thing?
see the sky.
I know. She's like, I'm cutting some trees down so I have better internet. It's forced her to take the best of the best, right? Because if catastrophe happens where she gets a disconnect in the middle of a trade, she wants to be taken. She wants to negate as much risk as she can, and it's made her, you know, an amazing trader. Um, so talking about a trade plan, right? So Ron and I, when we met, like we developed, and it was not like, oh, we talked for an hour and we developed a trade plan. Like our trade plan has been in development and with
for m-
small
for
modifications,
months.
along the way, right? It's the trade plan has been being created over months, right? Like we were able to quickly formulate a trade plan, but then, we had to modify it and adapt the trade plan as we went, forward. And now we have a very solid trade plan. And I don't see us making very many, changes to that trade plan. But the question I would ask, and I've been super fortunate where I've been able to have Ron and Ron has me, where we bounce these ideas and these our trade plan, our strategy, all that, that big encompassing, trade plan, quote unquote. We've been able to bounce that off of each other. But the question I would pose is, how many of you have shared your trade plan with someone who understands a trade plan? Because I could write my trade plan down in explicit detail and I could show it to my brother, and he don't know anything about trading. He's super smart, super analytical, love him to death, but he would not know heads or tails of this trade plan. He'd be like, "Well, yeah, it sounds good, I guess, but I don't know." And so, how many of you have been able to write your trade plan? Because everyone should have a trade plan, written down, right? But how many of you have been able to share that plan with someone who is in the same space as us? And I know for me, I've been able to have that, right? And you might have something on your trade plan that someone might look at it and say, why is that there? Or you might have something on your trade plan and then, so for example, if my trade plan, like the Apex, is net 3, net 6, right? So net 3 wins, you quit, net 6 losses, you quit, right? Like psychologically I cannot handle taking 6 losses. Like I've tried it. and it never goes well, right? And so on my trade plan I could say net 3, net 6. That's my trade plan. But I know for me, I can't handle net 6. For me, it just doesn't work. And so Ron and I don't have we don't have a net 6 loss plan, right? So like for example, on a 50K account, if we're down, you know, 400 or $500, depending on a few, like depending if the simplicity goes against you or whatever, like at 400 or $500, we're done. We hang it up. I'm able to digest that loss and survive for another day. But I know that if I keep trading at that, if I get, $500 loss, and then I take another trade and that loses, and say it's a Lorax, and then now I'm down like $700, right? If I get to that point, I know for me as a trader, I'm about chances are that I'm gonna spiral, right? And then that's not good, because when you spiral, your account gets blown up, right? If you're in a trial, it gets blown up. Or if you're in the early stages of a PA, that's when you lose your account. So I know in my trade plan, after modifying it and using that experience, you know that I have after blowing a number of accounts, that my stop is about $450, depending on a few factors. And so with that trade, and that's one little line item on the trade plan, right? And so I've been able to share that with Ron, and Ron's been able to share his trade plan with me, and we've been able to marry those trade plans, because we're usually give or take on the same wavelength. So having a quote unquote mentor to be able to bounce that off of and share your trade plan, for someone who understands it, is invaluable. and not only understands your trade plan, but knows you as a trader, right? And that takes time. Like you can't just have that instantaneous, like, oh yeah, that's a great trade plan, but like here is where you struggle. Either you could struggle at trade execution, you could struggle with the psychology, you could struggle with stopping when you're net three. There's all kinds of problems that each individual has, and as traders and as these relationships build, I could say, Ron, this is what are you doing? This is your weakness. And Ron can look at me and say, what are you doing? We should be doing this. But only through that time in that relationship can people like help one another. And so I'm able to help Ron, and Ron's able to help me. And so I would think that a lot of people, because I'm very fortunate, I'm very fortunate to have met Ron and have this. But I would say a lot of people don't have not had the opportunity to sit down and build those relationships with someone who is in the same apex space, right? Because you could talk to a trader trading some other strategy and some other different, and your trade plan is going to be vastly different from their trade plan, their risk, the reward, the lot size they're trading. There's a whole multitude of factors where their trade plan is not applicable to your trade plan.
And if you're not, and to add to that, if you're not specific and very comfortable with what it is that you're doing, and you're just trying to get certain types of information from the person, you could lean to what they're doing and get completely off track with what it is that you're doing. In other words, kind of like the shiny new object syndrome, if you would. And unless you're really solid with what you're doing and you're trying to find something from somebody else that's trading a different system than you could potentially deteriorate what it is that you're doing and lean towards what they're doing, which would destroy everything that you're going to basically be doing, if that makes any sense. So, for
I know.
example, if you're trading a certain trade plan and somebody else is trading a different trade plan, but the psychology that they're after or that their psychology that they're using is something that you want to actually incorporate into your trade plan, if your trade plan is trading a different system than they are, and you don't know how to differentiate the psychology from the actual trade system, which not everybody can. It's very difficult to do that unless you're very solid in your system. Then you could potentially ruin your own system, if that makes sense. So that's why it's really important to align yourself with really like-minded people that trade the exact same thing. And that's why you've seen, and we've gone through this, where I've talked to traders that will show up a chart and they say, well, here's my setup and what I'm trading. And they've got Apex, and then there's all kinds of stuff that's layered and overlaid on top of that, and it has nothing to do with the Apex system. And all that does is just creates a bunch of noise, and you're not going to be seeing the things that you need to see. Things are going to be very muddied. The water's going to be muddied. It's not going to be clear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know. For me, I when I was struggling, I went through and I tried to recreate the wheel like several times. Well, more than several, a lot of times, and it never worked. Right? It never, like, it would work maybe for a little bit, and then it would always fail. And so it's just coming back to Apex and just trading strictly Apex is like been the reason for the success that I see. Um, so the next question is do you want to learn, how to manage risk effectively? Because that, for me, that was my biggest struggle. Like, it's so easy when you get net three, right? If you take three trades, or even if you take a one and done, you like take a trade, bam, it wins. You're like, I'm done. I'm great, right? But
So
then,
Ben, hold on. Before you go on, ask the question one more time, and just ask the question in itself.
do you want to learn how to manage risk effectively?
Okay, there's 50 people in the room right now. let's see some questions from people. I want to make sure that everybody's kind of like engaged and not falling asleep.
I
Okay,
think,
good.
yeah. All right, we got Steven. He's engaged. All right. So, like, as far as managing the risk, right? So we talk about it, or we've talked about it in some of the videos. But going back to what I was saying, you get net three, so you get three winners in a row. Or you get a one and done, right? You've managed the risk, right? So you got your profit, right? But it's when you go into the red, right? So now you got to look at it where you're going to risk X amount to make X amount. But it's a long-term strategy, right? Like we can look at it in a trade by trade basis, but what I'm would focus on is managing the risk long term, right? Because every day we're walking into the markets and we're risking X amount. So say your stop loss is net six, or your stop loss is $500, or 450, or whatever it is. So every day we sit down and we're saying we are willing to risk $450, or I'm willing to risk net six to achieve my goal for the day, which is net three, $300, $1,000, like whatever your trade plan says. And so the managing risk is more about the long term risk that you have every day you're taking so much risk, and every month you're risking so much over the trading days. And so learning how to manage that risk long term is the only way that you're going to be successful long term, right? Because I know that I've gone, like, we all go in spurts with win streaks, right? There'll be like a week or two where it's like every day is like green, 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 and then you hit a red day, right? And you've had so many green days, you can't accept the fact that you're having a red day, right? Like, how can I go 5 days, 10 days, and experience all this winning, right? And now I'm in a drawdown. So that's the critical point, is how do I manage that risk, and how do I manage that scenario?
Let's take that to the next level of that question. How many of you have gone 5, 6, 7, 10 days in the green? And if you haven't, then just try to walk yourself through that scenario and had a losing day. You couldn't start accepting the fact that you're losing that day. It turns around into revenge trading. And if you're trading an evaluation account, you blew it. And if you're trading multiple accounts, you blew all of those.
That's happened.
So the question is, what if there was a way to stop doing that? Is that something that you would be interested in?
And it comes down.
No. Okay. Well, I guess.
Look at all those sarcastic people. Those are my people.
Yeah.
It comes down to, like, so for Ron and I, we're able to bounce, and Ron has red days, and I have red days. Everyone has red days, right? No one wins 100% of the time, right? And so when Ron has a red day, I usually have a red day, and when I have a red day, Ron usually has a red day, because we're seeing a lot of the same things and taking a lot of the same trades, and we keep each other in check. But we know that we got to, during a red day, during a drawdown period, we have to be able, one, you have to be able to stop, and you have to have perspective on this is just one little blip in the month. This is one little blip in the year, right? It's one little drawdown, and if you're able to digest that drawdown, keep yourself in check, keep your psychology in check, then you're able to accept that loss, and then the next day, hopefully, make it up. Or maybe you have 2 days of drawdown, or 3 days of drawdown, right? But having that perspective and having someone, to kind of snap you out of it, right? Because it's easy to start spiraling, and I talk about it a number of times, right? Get that drawdown, you can potentially spiral, or maybe you stop that first day after the drawdown, right? You follow your rules. The second day you hit it again. Now, what are your chances of spiraling on the second day? What happened? What about 3 days in a row? Ron and I have had that where it's like red, 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 and we're like, oh my gosh, that sucks, right? But we know we're able to take a step back, and we know long term we're going to look back 6 months from now, and we're not going to think about those 3 red days. What we're going to think about is if we were able to follow the rules and overcome it and push through it.
And that's one thing too, is when you're talking about those 3 red days, a lot of traders have a tendency to go, well, my plan's broken. So they start making changes to it. And once you make changes to it, you go trade again the next day. You're trading those changes. Those changes didn't work. You have another red day. You're making changes again. So the thing about it is that if you have a solid trade plan that you've actually proven to yourself that does work, you don't touch it. You don't make changes to it. Now, the thing with the Apex system in its whole is since it's all based on order prints, it's changing with the market. So it's actually more forward thinking than it is, like a looking at past history kind of a thing, trying to see where the market could potentially go. Where with the Apex system in order prints, it's telling you what happened right now and what's going to happen within the next, few bars of whatever chart that you're looking at.
Yeah, and piggybacking on what you said, Ron, trying to change your trade plan. For example, like I primarily trade NQ, and I trade the Lorex on NQ, but I don't recommend it. I recommend everyone, trade YM and RTY Lorex. But I know that my setup that I'm looking for, and it's a very narrowed down setup, right? I know that it has about a 70 to 75% win rate with a large tendency to be able to trail it and capture more ticks. So knowing that it has a 70% win rate, and this is based off of in time frame, like the time frame that I trade, and this is looking at I started my initial test with 100 of these trades back testing, right? And then formulating rules around them. So I know back tests give or take 70%, and I know trading it forward, which I've been doing for a while, it's about a 70% win rate. Now, just because it has a 70% win rate doesn't mean that every day that it's going to win, right? I might take 2 trades and they might be losers. But I know the probability is on my side. But just because those 2 setups that I know have a good win rate and and they were solid trades, et cetera, all the good things about the trade, right? But just because I experience 1 day of drawdown or 2 or 3 on my setup doesn't mean I go back to the drawing board. And that was a rabbit hole that I went down for about a year where I'd trade, I'd back test all these things. And I'd like, look at this win rate. Yeah, it's a win rate. And then I'd trade it for a few days and it'd do good. And then it would lose. And I'm like, well, back to the drawing board because we're red today. And then I would go back test. And then I would test and I would test again. I'm like, well, it did good for about a week and then it lost. Right. And so I know now that with the trade plan and the data and all that, I know that what I have is solid. And so I no longer go back to the drawing board. Now there might be a few little modifications that I make, but it's no longer taking, wiping the dry erase board clean and trying to just, rewrite everything. So try and stay pretty consistent on that. And so there's chat coming through. And so another thing, when we're staying consistent, and I think there's not I mean, maybe not a lot of people, but I think there's people. um, Ron, you're distracting me.
Sorry, it's my job.
Just kidding.
It is my job.
So who here has trouble like with consistency? I'm talking like a week to week consistency, where like week after week you're green, or maybe you're break even, but like where you can look at the equity curve of your account, and then it's steadily going up. Now you're going to experience drawdowns in the account. That's just the natural, you know, flow of things.
Now you can consistently also be losing too, and there's a different fix for that, right? So it's kind of like both ways.
So Bruce asks, he said, at a 70% win rate, your expected gain on one contract is zero. Right. And so that's another way I negate risk with my trade plan is I have a trailing ATM, and I utilize Apex order prints to identify targets where I think the trade's going to go. And so we've talked about it, where I trade two contracts. First contract scalps 9, which helps negate risk on a loss, right? If it goes 9 and then goes against me, I've already taken profit on one contract. So that helps a little bit. But then I trail, that helps negate some of the risk. And sometimes they break even, or sometimes, they just immediately, go against me. But I know through, being able to trail and reading the market, having good targets, that helps negate that risk. But yeah, if you're just doing a 921 at a 70% win rate, that's going to be hard. Now it's doable, and there's plenty of people who do it, but it is difficult. Well, I found it was difficult for me. Not to say that it is inherently difficult, but I know for me, that's something that I needed to do. So if you're consistently like red, or if you're consistently break even, how long have you been consistently red, or consistently break even, or consistently struggle? I know for me, I was consistently not a good trader for a good while. And it was a lot of struggle, right? And there's this picture there's this picture of these two miners, right? And they're both digging like the same hole, right? And one guy gives up, and he's like one swing with his pickaxe away from reaching his goal. And the other guy just keeps going, and he gets to I think it's a gold mine or something like that. And so he gets to his goal. He gets to his gold. So that's one thing we got to do as traders is we got to stay consistent with our trade plan. But also, if you're consistently red or consistently break even, where you're not making progress, like what needs to change, right? And that's where Ron and I have been so lucky, where if we get into those periods, right, we can say, what do we need to change? What do we need to look at? And that was early on, right? And so we were able to formulate a plan around that so that over the long term we can look at our equity curve and it's, going, has an upward momentum, because that's what we want in the equity curve. Because if you're just flat, if you're flat for a long time, you're not making any progress, and that can be very disheartening and defeating, because I've been there.
Yep, and I can tell you with regards to the change that was made, for example, for me, it's gotten to the point, and this is just kind of it summarizes everything, that less is more. And I've talked about this in the elite room a couple of times, where I try to take the least amount of setups with the least amount of trades with the highest profitability or probability of winning, and then just scale up and increase contract size. And that helps a lot. And for me, for those of you who have known me and have seen me throughout the last year or so, you know that and in DC, if you're in here, you've seen this and have actually made comments about that as well, how I have apps. Oh, yeah, you are in here. I just saw you pop up. I'm hoping you're still in here. I don't have a problem sitting on my hands the entire day and doing absolutely nothing but looking at the screen, and at the end of the session going, yep, no trades for me today. That's not a problem. I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll come back in the afternoon session for power hour. And David, I don't know if you remember the comment that you made, but it had something to do with, being ice cold, like having ice run through my veins or whatever it is, and how I don't let any of this stuff affect me, and whether it's a win or a loss or not even taking a trade. There was a time last year where I think I went an entire week without a single trade. Then I took a trade on a Friday. It was a simplicity trade, and it went for almost 140 or 150 ticks or what have you. And it made up for the entire week that I didn't trade. So all that stuff is something that you have to work on, and you need somebody to guide you through that process to make sure that you're doing it correctly. It's not something that I did on my own at all. This is something that I had to basically pull back from old previous coaching and mentoring that I had to apply it to trading. And I basically took that, and that's what I do when I work with, either one of the traders as one-on-one, or just when I talk to Ben. I don't look at like, oh, well, Ben's just going to be somebody that I'm coaching or mentoring. He's somebody that, we work together on it. Literally, we trade on a daily basis. So it's beneficial for me when he does good, because when he does good, I do good. When I do good, he does good. So it's kind of like a bounce, back and forth. And as long as it progressively stair steps upward and in a positive direction, then it's a win-win for everybody. And that's, I think that's what is needed and what is required, at least for me and for Ben, for be able to keep doing what we're doing. That doesn't mean we wouldn't be able to do it alone. It just means that it would take exponentially longer to get to where we need to get if we were to go at this alone. And I've proven it to myself time and time again. And literally, I talk to Ben about this every day, how grateful I am that he's, with me and able to do all this stuff. And again, it's literally priceless for me.
Yeah, and right back at you with all those comments, Ron. All right, so going
I was
through
fishing because you know how much I hate, compliments.
compliments. That's right. So the next question, and there's only two more questions. So are you will? So the question is, are you willing to commit time and effort to improve your trading? Now, I think the resounding answer is, everyone's going to say yes, right? Because everyone wants to be. If you're here, right, you want to be successful in trading. But there's another level to that answer instead of just yes, right? Because for me, if anyone asked me that anytime during the past, whenever, how long I've ever been doing this, if they asked me every day, my answer would always be yes, 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 yes. Every day I would say yes, right? Because no one's going to say no to, like, no, I don't want to put in the time and effort to be better. Everyone, everyone's going to say yes because that is the correct answer, right? But I know for me, as far as putting the time in, right? There's there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to not just reading the charts and knowing the setups. It's been, working on my psychology. It's been back testing. It's been working with people. It's being active in the mentor groups. Like, it's a full encompassing thing, and not just, yes, I want to put in the time and effort, but like, my time and effort is different than Ron's time and effort, and Ron's time and effort is different than, David's time and effort, right? And they're all different, and they all have, they're all good things, right? Some people put in a lot more time, some people don't put in a lot of time, but I can tell you, the more time that you put in and the more active you are and the more commitment you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. Like, every time that I talk with someone, like, I get quite a few people who message me on Skype, and we talk, and not really, not quote unquote mentoring, but we're just, we're talking, we're putting in the time on, their issues, or my issues, right? But every time I'm helping someone, I'm getting something out of it. And when they're helping me with someone, I hope, they're getting something out of it. So the answer to the question is yes.
I need to add something to that real quick before you answer that. Now, I know the answer is yes. The question is, are you willing to commit the time and effort to improve your, trading skills and achieve your goals? And are you willing to do whatever it takes? Now, think about that for a second, because you're going to answer that question with wherever your comfort zone is. And before you answer that, I'm going to ask you a question. Well, what if I held up a mirror and I made you look at yourself, and I'm going to show you some things that are standing in your way of your progress and of your success? Are you willing to change that? And that's going to literally take you outside of your comfort zone. Now, a lot of people say, oh, no, 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 that's not for me. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and it's going to work. Well, if you remember in the very beginning, one of the things that Ben said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, unless you make a change to something that someone from the outside is seeing that is hurting your trading, and even though that's what you're comfortable with, but that's what's preventing you from progressing forward, unless you're absolutely willing to rip that apart and take that out of whatever either it's your trade plan, your way of thinking, the way you're approaching things, or what have you, unless you're willing to do that, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and we've I've proven it to myself that it doesn't work. So
Yeah,
a lot
because
of trial and error.
trying to take a square peg and forcing it into a round hole is not going to work. A lot of things are going to break along the way.
That that is for sure. So, gonna try and bring this, all together. So we've kind of talked about what, Ron and I have worked on together, and working with people, over the years, and the same with Ron. Like, we realized that there was a need for a mentor program, because there's the mentor groups, and they are great. I was singing their praises all day long. They're fantastic. But we're trying to go one little step further in a small personalized approach. And so the next question is if you'd be interested in working with Ron and I, where we can provide personalized guidance in your trading. Now, we have done a lot of this one-on-one, and like Skype one-on-one. But we wanted to put something together, formally, that we think is going to be great. And like, that's our goal, is for it to be great, and to hear, good reviews. And like, one of the coolest things about helping people there's a lot of great things, but like, you help, quote unquote, mentor someone, and you watch them, because this happened to me, right? And so the person who mentored me, like, they got to see this happen with me, right? Where you go from, maybe finding some mild success or struggle, you turn it around, you get funded, you do good on your funding, you get payout. Like, there's this process, and that's rewarding in and of itself. But seeing the transformation of the person from who they were, right? So is the is the trader you are right now the trader who's going to be able to accomplish these things? Right? Is the trader you are right now, are they the trader that's going to be able to live off the income? Are they the trader that's going to be able to consistently, pass some evals, keep their PAs, and then get withdrawals? Like, if your answer is yes, right, then you're doing fantastic, right? But I think a lot of us would look in the mirror and say, the trader I am right now is maybe struggling and has some deficiencies. The trader I want to be in 6 months to a year, that's who I need to be, right? You need to be like the best version of the trader that you can be. And some of the times we don't know what those deficiencies are as a trader until someone points it out. Like, Ron has pointed stuff out for me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's what am I thinking, or what was I thinking, or why did I do that? Or he calls me out on a mistake, and it's just like, I can't, you know, I'm so grateful that he pointed that out, because it's blaringly obvious now. But without him pointing it out, I might have just went down, and chances are I would have found it eventually and recognized it, right? But that might have taken a month, or that might have taken me a whole bunch of resets, or it might have taken me 6 months to realize that, right? So we're trying to have a program that takes a personalized approach. So what we're planning, right? And we've already talked about, like, the reason that we're doing this is because we feel that there is a need for something like this.
And the reason also that we say that is because I know that when I was starting with Apex, I wish that something like this was out there. Because if there was, I'd be all over it. Because I wouldn't have made half the mistakes that I made to get to where I am today. I would have been there a lot quicker. Now, obviously, everything happens for a reason, right? And it got me to where I am today. But there was a lot of frustration, headaches, money spent that didn't have to happen if I would have had, you know, someone like Lori that would take the time and you know, do some one-on-ones on me. But it just, you can't do it. There was so many. I mean, the Apex community is pretty big. I mean, we're actually part of a pretty big community, believe it or not. At least that's what I found out. So within that, we're just trying to strengthen it so that the community grows, so that good traders come out of the Apex investing program that transitions into the Apex trader funding program. Because whether you guys realize it or not, my goal is to be, I mean, having a PA is one thing, but actually having a live account with Apex, that's a whole nother level. So I'm waiting for the call one day for Daryl to call me and say, hey, you know what? I want you as one of my traders. It's going to happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen because that's my goal. That's what I strive for. Now, if that means at some point that I'm going to have some serious one-on-one mentoring with him, then so be it, right? But in the meantime, we can take this community and grow it to that level to where we can get, at least a lot of people funded in keeping the PAs, so that we can show the Apex Trader funding portion of it that I'm worth you putting your money behind me.
And that's going to happen one day, right? One day. Like we all got to have these great goals. And only through like consistency, like are we going to get there, right? Are we going to achieve our goals? So what we put together, right? Because we could spend all day on the phone, in Skype, right? But we wanted to like formally put something together that's going to be beneficial for a number of people. So it's going to be a tailored mentoring approach, right? So think think mentor groups, but they're going to be very small. They're going to be very small and personalized. Sorry, my son came in. So they're going to be very small and personalized, and we're going to not pair, but we're going to group people together with similar skills and similar levels, right? Because you could be part of a group and say this trader has 20 PAs and he's taking withdrawals. You have someone brand new to Apex, right? So the skill gap and the knowledge gap is vast, and they can people, they can still learn from each other, but we want to group people together who are of similar skill sets and similar levels, and then Ron and I want to take kind of a mentor approach to that group, and help them where we can, right? Because we all have very limited time, right? And so we're trying to figure out a way to utilize our time in the best method that's going to help the most the most people. And so within this, on the back end of the mentor thing, we have um, so we have it set up there's so everyone has different setups, right? So like there's not everyone, but like in Apex, there's simplicity LREs, there's Lorax, there's sniper, there's inner bar scalp, right? And we can always add more. But the thought is if you're a simplicity trader, say you only focus on simplicity. Now the backend is brand new, so those will be user driven, right? As people add content to it, you're going to have a channel that's focused all on simplicity. So you'll be able to go there and it's just going to be all simplicity all the time. Or if you're trading sniper, it's going to be all sniper all the time. Or if you're trading the Lorex, it's going to be all Lorex all the time. And so you're going to be able to really see example after example of all these setups and getting feedback, not only from Ron and I, but also from the group. And obviously we'll be active in there, answering questions and helping where we can.
And also make sure that, this is where you need to put in the work as well. And you have to take the time to put yourself out there. And, when the statement is made, post your charts, I mean, it's an understatement here, where it's you literally have to do that, because otherwise you're never going to know what you don't know, and you're never going to know if and when you're making a mistake. You're never going to know if you're seeing something that's not there, or if you're not seeing something that is there that you missed. And only that, through time and repetition, is it going to strengthen your skill set, and then everything is going to eventually become second nature, right?
Yeah, it's a definite focus on user driven. Now we'll post charts and post trades in there, right? But only by, like, if we post all of our trades, right, that doesn't really help. I apologize for
It's
that
like
dog.
Lori's zoo. You've got a dog.
Those are not. We're watching one of our friend's dogs, and she's a talker, so I apologize about that. But so definitely user driven content, right? And Ron and I, we could post trades. We could post trades, all day long, right? But that's not really helpful in a whole, because we need to see the trades that other people are taking so we can critique those. And it's the same thing in the mentor groups. And this is in no way to take away from the mentor groups that Lori runs. I recommend that everyone be as active as they can in there, because you will be a better trader the more time you put in the mentor groups. This is more of a sidestep, but I want to emphasize that this is to not take away from anything of the Apex mentor groups. This is, a separate thing. But so we need to see the trades, right? So we can offer critiques, and so the group can see these trades, and we can offer feedback, and we can start taking, as a group, start taking better trades and seeing, like, Ron and I talking about simplicity today. I was like, hey, where's your stop? And like him and I were within like 2 ticks of having the same stop, right? So like that's our goal, right? So people are seeing the same things that we're seeing, and only through active participation can can that be achieved. And there's a number of other different places. We obviously can't force anyone to post anything, right? But we want everyone as active as they can be. There's a section in there, where people can post their progress, keep them, and keep each other accountable, right? You guys can, form relationships within the group, and that's kind of why we're doing the smaller tailored mentor groups, that we think, like, because I would like to know everyone, right? I would like to be able to work with everyone, but that is Like that is impossible, right? And so these relationships that you guys will form with other traders, hopefully within this program, will be something that you guys will be able to bounce ideas off of them, and work together and achieve the goals that you have. We have an area in there for psychology. Once again, that's going to be this is all user driven. So if the expectation is there's going to be novels written by Ron and I, that is that is not the case.
Yeah,
But
because there's no point in that. Um, the whole idea is to tailor it to the individual trader. And like somebody made a comment before earlier that you can't have a conversation with a YouTube video. And that's no different than any other trading, you know, training, coaching, any kind of other program that's out there where you're, and this is not about buying a course or anything like that. It's not, this is about, one-on-one working with you, literally close to one-on-one, taking you to the next level. You can't ask a question of a video. You can't ask a question of a book. You take what you can, you interpret it, and then you kind of go from there. With this, you're actually getting the interaction of Ben and myself. You're getting live, feedback on everything. And it doesn't really matter what I think, but the question is, would you see a benefit? I mean, that's the question I'm posing to you guys right now: is do you see a benefit in something like that, where you actually get the live feedback as opposed to trying to watch a video somewhere, or like Ben was saying, have a library of information that you basically thumb through and then you try to interpret it on your own? Do you see would you see an advantage in that, or a benefit?
as we wait patiently for the answers.
Cricket. Where's my cricket soundboard? Where is that?
And so and so that
and, and by the way, I'm sorry, Ben, before you do that, real quick question. I know we've had some people that have joined late and so forth. Is anybody in here not an Apex member right now that's in the podcast? There is. Okay, fantastic. So um, Ben and I focus and we trade specifically Apex strategies and Apex tools, and you can get access for free um, to all the Apex tools. There's actually a live trade room that is ran every single morning from 9:30 to noon Eastern, and I just posted a link on that you can, there's a QR code you can scan. Um, you can scan with your phone, and if you don't, then you'll just go to the website that's on the ticker at the bottom. But you get basically free access to the live trade room and all the tools and indicators and everything that's required to run the Apex system. And I'm actually one of the I don't even want to. There's no title. I'm just one of the people in the room that runs with Lori, who's like the head. I don't even. There's no titles. There's nothing. I mean, it's just I accompany Lori in the trade room every single morning from 9:30 to noon Eastern, and then I also um, I'm in the trade room um, during the last hour of the trading day from 3 to 4 Eastern for Power Hour, and we can discuss all these things live. And so again, I highly encourage you, if you're not an Apex member, to get access to this stuff. You literally get it for 30 days for free, and then if you like it and you find that it's helping you and you're actually able to be successful and trade and make it financially lucrative for you, then the next 30 days for that I think only costs like $1. So you get 60 days for $1, and then whatever the membership is after that. But by then, within 60 days in trading the Apex tools and having access to all the information, trading and indicators and all that, you'll know very well if this is something that you want to do and continue trading. Because if you do, it's already going to pay for itself 100 times over. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, Ben, before you continue. And I'll leave this up, through the duration that we talk about. So people that are watching this thing, um,
Gotcha. So Bruce, he asked, so we don't, Ron and I don't really trade ES, right? Um, that could change in the future, but we don't typically trade ES. And you asked if there would be a benefit, you know, for you because you primarily trade ES. So the focus of the whole thing is not going to be. I mean, there is going to be a focus on setups and trades, but it's more of like an overarching mentor program, right? Like, the psychology behind the site. There's all the technical parts of your trades, right? But there's the psychology, like when should you scale? When should you scale your account? When should you withdraw? Like, how do you handle losses? So there's an overarching theme to the mentor program. And just because we don't trade ES, like, I still think we're bringing a lot to the to the table with everything else. Now, what I previously talked about with the kind of the groups and the smaller groups and being able to focus on trade setups and everything. Um, so I don't want to say that's a side note, but the main thing of our mentor programs is we have there's basically two levels, right? And so one, we're going to, with the first level, and that's kind of recommended for people who are starting out. We're going to do we do a monthly group call, right? And that's going to last for, how long did we say?
30 minutes.
So, and it will probably go longer, right? But we put the number in there just for constraints, but it can almost guarantee that it's gonna
Yeah, I've yet to
probably.
finish. I mean, like here,
We
this
always
whole
say
thing.
that, and it's
We
like
did
an
this
hour and a half
today, and we
later.
said, oh, we're going to be done in an hour, and here we are, an hour and a half into this thing, and we're still going, right? So, and we haven't even taken questions yet.
So
So,
the main, I would think, for me, I know for me, if I was looking at it, the main thing would be, it's going to be a group mentor call, right? Oh, and then also on the back end, there are also places where you can join and you can talk to other traders, like through voice, right? So you can connect with people on a
yeah,
different
not just
level.
chat. Yeah, not just chat. You actually get
Yeah,
to
through
have
voice, right?
a voice conversation with them.
Because I know sometimes through chat, like, I'm a very, like, sarcastic and goofy guy, and sometimes I type stuff to Ron or whatever to someone, and I'm like, that's probably misunderstood, so we'll just delete that. That's so it's so. But talking with voice, you're able to convey in a very quick manner and be understood easily. So we have that also on the back end, so you'll be able to connect with people, within your group. And um, we've already had a number of people join, and they were in there talking, and I jumped in there and probably spent about 45 minutes in, just talking with them. We're just on mic. And so it's really cool. So the starter level is, we're gonna do a monthly group call with the group, and we're gonna talk, and I'm sure everyone's gonna have a bunch of questions. We're gonna do our best to answer those questions and try and, you know, answer as many questions as we can and offer as much guidance as we can. And that's gonna happen on, a monthly basis with all the other stuff that we talked about it. And then the next, the level, we had to name them, right. So the next level is going to be the quote unquote, that's going to be the VIP, right. And so those are going to be two calls a month. So that's tailored more for the people who are going through the trials, have funded accounts, and looking for more uh, quote unquote, FaceTime with the group or us. And so that's where I would say the most value is going to be derived is in those group calls and the communication with us, and not just with us, with the other people and the mentor groups, that you're going to be, grouped with. And so, like, that's kind of the summary on what we put together for the mentor program. Once again, working with people over the years, we thought that there was a need for something like this, and it's been something that we've been excited about and wanting to talk about for quite a while. I know that Lori has mentioned it in the room, and I know that people have been excited. We've had quite a few people sign up, and we're looking forward to getting those groups going and spending time with people, really working on ironing out the problems that can arrive or that we have as traders, right? And it's a constant process, right? Like, Ron and I bounce stuff off each other all the time, and we're always working towards our goal.
And don't forget also, Ben, the last option is that there is an option of just a one-on-one or two-on-one where you get both Ben and I, literally just you and Ben and myself, for an hour, and we can cover whatever it is that you need to work on, um, from developing a personal trade plan. I mean, it's whatever it is that it's just you personally want to work on yourself.
So Fiji Trader asks, "What are your thoughts on trading the MNQ MES?" So if you're going to trade like 10 plus minis, or 10 plus micros, you might as well like trade a mini. Like, that's always been my thought. Like, I trade it, like, for simplicity, I trade MNQ, two micro contracts to have lower risk.
Are there any questions?
Gregio asks, for the one-on-ones, we communicate through Skype. Yeah, so we're trying to
Well,
do it where
just put the link up, Ben.
yeah. So I would put the link up.
Okay.
Yeah, so that can be done through. There's a couple different options for the mentor, and that can be done through Skype, or there's also another, like, called video. So there's a couple different options, but yeah, that's one-on-one. It's
Yeah,
going to
primarily
be.
we have I have a piece of software that I use that has worked really well for us, because that gives us the ability to go over chart reviews. The screen sharing is a lot easier. Skype seems to be a little bit on the limited end, if you would. So I found that with the software that I use for the one-on-ones, it gives me a lot more flexibility to do what I need to do. The calls will be recorded and then sent over to the participant for a review later on. So yeah, it's just going to be a huge benefit, all for everybody.
So Kevin asks that, how detailed will the starter be? So each, and it's kind of like when Ron and I will work with someone, or the calls vary, like, dramatically, right? So, like, say a one-on-one, right? So the calls vary dramatically. Like, one trader could just be really struggling with psychology. Another person could have, like, absolutely no semblance of a trade plan. Another trader could just be taking all the Apex setups and not really like having a plan in terms of like what his setups are.
Yeah, and another trader, just to throw that in there, can be brand spanking new, not have any idea with anything, but just wants a one-on-one hand holding to get set up from beginning to end, which is something that is going to be done a lot quicker when you have this one-on-one, as opposed to trying to go through chat and back and forth, and something that could take hours, if not days, to get you set up. That within an hour or two, you're basically up and running. Just as an example.
Yeah, so it's a hard question to answer and say, well, the starter package is only going to include like XYZ, right? So it could be that, the quote unquote, starter group, that mentor group, depending on where that's, driven by the people in the group, we could have maybe not better, but we could, depending on week to week, maybe that one call that week is more substantial than the one that happens in the VIP, right? So we're gonna walk into the calls with an open-minded approach and say what are people struggling with, what issues are they going, right? We're not going to have, it's not going to be like a lesson plan where we go, today we're going to talk about XYZ. We're going to People are going to bring their questions and we're going to talk about what the group wants to talk about, right? It's an open-ended discussion, because we don't want to go and just stand at the pulpit and just be like, this is what we're going to talk about, you guys sit back and listen, right? Because that's not anything we're interested in doing. We want to be interactive. We want to take the group or you personally towards your goal, right? And
And answer
sometimes it
your
might be
yeah.
talking
Answer
about,
your question. Yeah. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
sorry, so
No, no.
sometimes it might be just talking about setups, sometimes it might be talking about psychology. Sometimes it might be, celebrating that the person, a couple people in the group got funded, or there were withdrawals, right? Because the needs that we have as traders, they'll vary from day to day, and they'll vary from week to week as you enter, certain stages. And then sometimes you relapse and you go back, right? And so like what was relevant 2 weeks, what was relevant 2 weeks ago, maybe this week, hey, we need to revisit, XYZ, right? That would really help me if we talked about it. So we're going to go into these with a very open-minded approach and try and help and mentor where we can based on the needs of the people in the groups. Yeah, so Stephen, yeah, you can share your screen, or you post with the way it's segmented, you can, post the screenshots kind of the way you've been doing in the mentor group.
Yeah, and if you do a one-on-one, you can share your screen. You can, I mean, it's going to be literally like if we're sitting there with you. You know, it's the next best thing to physically being in the same place, not being in the same place.
So David B, he asks, is there a fee? So yeah, there is a fee. And so the starter is that's $47 a month. And that's the way we set it up. We tried to make it as affordable as possible, right? Like we looked at other mentor programs and advice from other people, and their prices were like, oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, and
That's crazy.
the thing about it is too, guys, is that this is not something that Ben and I are doing so that this is not a way for me to make a living. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to get rich off of this or nothing like that. This is the reason for the fee is twofold. Number one is again, everything that I do with Apex. Remember, I do not, and neither does Ben. We're not employed by Apex. We don't get paid by them. This is all done on our own free will. But the thing about it is, when we're getting into this level of assisting, coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it, it's going to require a lot of time. And if I'm going to invest the time, I need to make sure that someone's got some kind of skin in the game, so that, and forgive me for using this terminology, I don't want to feel like being taken advantage of, because there's been times where I would do this and somebody would just milk this for all it's worth and then do nothing that was being instructed or asked of them, and then they just move on. And then they take all this information with them and then they do nothing with it. So again, it's because they don't want to do it because it feels uncomfortable to them. Remember, we said earlier, it's taking you out of your comfort zone. So you need to have some skin in the game so that that you've got something to lose if you don't do this, right? So that's kind of like the thing. And then also there's costs involved in putting all this together. I mean, there's a bunch of things running in the back end that are not free to me. So, you know, it costs money. So we got to recoup those costs. So that's the reason that the pricing was structured the way that it was. Um, and again, it's like if you were to go see a psychologist, not that I'm a trained or, licensed psychologist or psychiatrist for anything, but you'd pay money to go see somebody to help you with whatever it is that you need. Now, again, I don't claim to do that, but I can definitely help you to trade and to put you in the right mindset to trade. I don't have to be licensed for that. So again, I've learned a lot of things through my life and through life experience that I'm more than willing to share. And unfortunately, I guess it's going to cost you. So again, I think it's very affordable and no sound. You cannot hear me.
No, there's sound.
Okay.
Must be on their end.
Okay. So that's basically it. And this has all been ran through Lori and Daryl, and um, it's 100%. I mean, Apex. This is all Apex. Nothing. There's nothing going to be outside of Apex that's going to be discussed or even suggested or recommended, because this is all about making Apex traders better Apex traders.
So going back, so we have this right, the starter package, right? So that's $47 a month. That includes everything that we talked about as far as the groups and the voice and the chat groups, right? And that's one monthly group call, and then we have the VIP that's $97 a month, and that is the difference between those two is we're going to be doing biweekly or two calls a month with the group, right? And so that's tailored more for people who are, further along in their trading journey, or maybe for some people who are looking for more like time, with us, right? And then for the one on ones, those are 100, or I guess it's a 2-on-1. Those are 197 for an hour. And then for that, if you do the one-on-ones or the two-on-ones, then you get 1 month free of the VIP. I don't
And
like talking about money. Like it's just like I
yeah, I
wish it
don't
was
like to do
free,
that
but
either.
right, like
I
Ron already
Yeah,
covered
it's just
why there's a price for it, because we want to spend, because our time is valuable too, and we value your time, and so we want to marry those two agreements that our time is equally as valuable. And so that's why
right,
there's a cost associated with it.
right. And the daily chat rooms, if you would, for the group, it's 24/7. It's ongoing, and both Ben and I, through Monday through Friday at least, because on the weekends we don't trade, and it's going to be kind of light. But Monday through Friday, we'll try to be as engaged as possible. Um, and So what was I trying to answer? So yeah, so the engagement is going to be um, pretty consistent, and ongoing on a daily basis. And the more involved and engaged you are, the more responsive we will be. It's kind of like the teacher is there, and again, I'm just using an analogy. I'm not saying that this is what we are, but the teacher is there to teach. The student has to come and ask to be taught. Um, I guess is the only analogy that I can kind of put forth. And again, the pricing structure that we have now is we're just doing this for a limited time, just to kind of get this going. But it's definitely going to change in the future, and it won't stay at this price level for sure. Um, just so you kind of know, I mean, this is like an introductory kind of a limited time thing. Don't know how limited, but it's a limited.
So raising Cain, he's said, should we be at a level where we are trading the Lorex and simplicity since you guys are really not trading the beginner TX trades any longer? So between Ron and I, like, well, even just between me, like just me, like I know the sniper system in and out extensively, and I can provide feedback on any trade setup that Apex has. And Ron is the same way. So like there will be feedback obviously on the trades that are posted, right? So there's a section in there for sniper trades. And post all those trades, we can get feedback. We're not calling like live trades on the back end of this, right? Like if you want live trades, you go to the ER. That's what you do in the ER. You get
And that's
live
elite room,
trade.
by the way,
Or,
not emergency room for those of you who are not Apex traders.
sorry,
So
I've called it ER for so long. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the elite room. Go to the elite room for live trade. So there will like be no live trade calling or anything in that regard there. But yeah, we as far as like any setup with Apex, I mean, we can provide feedback. And once again, this is more for not more for, but like the psychology, the trade plan. This is more like a total package for trading on what you need rather than like
Regardless of what level you're at, too, by the way. So this is all about making you a better trader at the end of the day.
right. If your primary focus is to just get feedback on trades, right, then the mentor groups like that is a great resource, right? And once again, I recommend that resource. And we can provide feedback on all the trades, right? But the focus is more of an all-encompassing thing rather than just say yes, this is a good trade, no, that's a bad trade. It's going to be there, and we'll provide all that, but this is more of a kind of a total package thing, if you will. So, Ron, I think that ends my pitch. Unless there's any other. Kane, it is. We had people interested, and people have already signed up for it. Uh, Starting like
This
last
wasn't,
week,
yeah, it
right? It
wasn't,
wasn't like an
yeah.
official launch, but it's live now. The website's up, fully functional, and then once you sign up, all the details are sent out. So
Yeah, once you start the process of, getting signed up, you'll get everything. You'll get, all the information that you need.
then I just posted the website. It's largepips.com. You can also scan the QR code, and that takes you to it. You can either click the link or scan the QR code. It'll take you there. and all the details. All the details are there. But I'm pretty excited. Ron and I put in a lot of time trying to make something for the community that benefits the community, and not just the community, but like individual traders. Like what we're putting together, like our plan going forward is like we think this can help. And if we didn't think it could help, we wouldn't have done this at all.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we know that there's a need for this. I know Lori has mentioned many times, and it's it's something that the Apex community needs just to kind of take it to the next level, if you would. David B, how do we get started? How do you get started? Well, you can either scan the QR code, um, or go to the the website. Um, the easiest thing would be, and let me post this in the chat, which is it's the same as the QR code. This link. If you click on that and you put your email address and your name, that gets you into the system, and then all this the sign up info, which correlates to all the information that's shown on that page, will be in the sign up page.
Mark, when did you sign up? Steve and I used to ask if there is a calendar. We have it set up to where, I mean, so we're gonna but the calls will be recorded, and we're gonna set it up to where we can get the most amount of people uh, into the calls.
Um, yeah, there will be a calendar up for the once you sign up for the and you get signed into the system on the back end, and you are and you paid for a one-on-one, you'll have a link to a calendar that you'll be able to select the date and time slot for your one-on-one. Yes, there is a calendar for that. Mark, I'm trying to find. We can. Fiji. That's again. There's a. We'd have to analyze your trade that you took and see where your stop placement was, because sometimes you have to increase your stop to move behind order prints, because the trade, again, I don't know what setup you're talking about. I mean, it's not something that is easily answered, but there's definitely an answer to that question for sure.
Are there any other questions? obviously try and answer them all. Well, it doesn't sound like there's any more questions, Ron. So that
Okay.
either
And
means we did a good job or everyone's asleep. So
yeah,
maybe somewhere in between.
one of the two. So, all right. So I guess with that we'll call it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I really appreciate it. We ran a little bit longer, almost 2 hours. For those of you who have stayed, I really appreciate it. I know you guys have a lot of options to do with what you can do with your time, and the fact that you chose to be here with us means a great deal to me, and I'm sure to Ben as well.
For sure.
I'm forever grateful and very appreciative that you guys chose to do that with us. Um, if you have any questions, you can reach either Ben or myself through Skype, or if you're in an Apex community and you're see us in the elite room every morning, then you can ask me questions there. You can also contact me through Skype, or Ben as well. And don't forget to hit the like button if this was something that you found beneficial. That would be great. Again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks again. And we will. And Mark, I just see I got an email from you, Mark. If you can see me, I don't know what it's about, but I know you just emailed it. So we'll take a look at that. We'll connect through that later and let you know what you need to do. Again, Power Hour is a half an hour from now. Yeah, I'll try to go in there, and I'll be there for Power Hour. So if you guys want, you can see me in about a half an hour in the elite room. Again, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We hope to see you guys um, in the program. If you found it beneficial, we'd love to see you join, and we will see you guys real soon. Thanks again, and see you guys soon.